Good afternoon, and welcome to the Wednesday afternoon conference call with Trusts Unlimited. This is Jim George speaking. I'm the non-attorney spokesman and facilitator for Trusts Unlimited, and I'd like to thank all of you for taking the time to listen to this call. If the things we discuss are of interest and you're a newer caller, I hope you will click the subscribe button and be a regular listener. This will be a little bit shorter call today for a couple of reasons. We're being inundated with requests for trust packages and questions, which I'm kind of duty-bound to, put number one on the list, so I've got to deal with that as well. Some of you know we had a kind of an untimely death in the family, and since I'm the estate planner in the family, I'm doing double and triple duty there, and I appreciate some of the kind words I've gotten from some of you. But let's go ahead and get into this call. First, by way of disclaimer, of course, Trusts Unlimited is not the purveyor of the dinar and these other currencies. It's a speculative investment. As rather substantial currency holders ourselves, we're sharing with you the information we believe to be most relevant. Everyone's great concern, of course, is the window for the reinstatement of the Iraqi dinar and then hopefully some of these other currencies. We're in a little bit of a state of limbo. There's been some negative commentary going on out there, as a matter of fact, due to some disappointment by individuals who really thought that this would have been done by now. But again, this is a speculative investment. However, I do think there's some good news out there, and I'm going to share it with you today. We're kind of in a place right now where we were with the Kuwaiti dinar that reinstituted in the first quarter of 1991. Because just weeks before the Kuwaiti dinar reinstituted, the CBI of Kuwait announced that it would be at least a year before they reinstituted their currency. Now, my only response to that, as I look back at it, is that they were concerned about speculators and some nefarious players. And so they did a head fake. And I'm not saying that that's what Iraq is doing. I'm simply saying that Iraq is moving forward, and a lot of the naysayers are just people who understandably are impatient, but you got to, with all investments of this nature, you really have to focus and not get too high or too low, but just follow what's happening. So that's what we're going to do today. And I'm going to do this by just touching on the big players here and what they're doing and what they're involved in. And, of course, we have to start with Prime Minister Soudani. Let's not forget that earlier this year he made a promise, swore on Allah, which is not something a faithful Muslim would do if they were not serious. And he told the citizens that they would see a new exchange rate this year. So I'll just put that in its worst possible scenario. This year ends in about 3.5 months, so we should expect to see a new exchange rate in that period of time. Soudani is also going to be retiring a Iraq, who he feels has not been moving as quickly as he should in certain areas. Soudani is also continuing to negotiate multiple international contracts for the massive rebuilding of the infrastructure of Iraq. This simply cannot be done with a currency at 1310, and the individuals involved in these contracts understand that this cannot be done at 1310. Iraq at present has more USD in reserve than it's ever had in the past, but even that amount is dwarfed by these contracts. So again, common sense dictates that something of a dramatic nature is going to have to happen in order to fund these contracts. And the only thing mathematically that works is the reinstatement of the Kuwaiti dinar. Then we have an NGO, FATF, which stands for Financial Action Task Force. And they are officially removing Iraq from the gray list. meaning that they're no longer a high risk for money laundering and the funding of terrorism. This is an important move, too, because in order to be fully lifted from sanctions, these issues have to be resolved. Then we have the United States Treasury, which is currently working inside Iraq in the CBI. What are they doing? Well, they're monitoring the few sanctioned banks that had been operating with the use of the U.S. dollar. They're helping work toward the stability of the dinar and closing the gap between the official and the street rate. They're working with Salih, who is the financial advisor of Sudani, to fully implement the electronic banking system. And Alak, prior to his retirement, will be visiting the United States Treasury, again, to deal with the issue of the sanctioned banks. So these are not the activities of a country that's not working actively to reinstate their currency. I want to touch on one other thing here, and that is the issue with the 3 zeros, because there is some scuttlebutt that the deletion of the 3 zeros will not only affect the Iraqi citizen, but it will also affect us. I do not believe that that is the case, and I'll explain why. First, we have to remember that the addition and the deletion of the 3 zeros is an in-country phenomenon. The provisional 3-0 were added to the provisional currency to combat inflation in country as the result of what Saddam Hussein had been doing both domestically and in terms of his invasion of Kuwait. The lifting of the international sanctions and the reduction of inflation, which is taking place in country, will result in the completion of the project to delete the 3 zeros for the citizens of Iraq. They will have a currency that's not only got a new exchange rate, but the elimination of inflation means they will have actual purchasing power, and they will be able to purchase goods and services not at highly inflated rates, but at normal inflation rates with a valid currency. They won't need the U.S. dollar, and they won't need the 3-0 provisional currency. They'll be able to purchase goods and services in country using the new currency with a new exchange rate. Now, let's talk about the rest of us outside of the country, those of us that have purchased the Iraqi dinar, the provisional 3-0 currency. Because what we did was we invested in the nation state of Iraq. We internationally provided the funds that Iraq needed in order to rebuild, reestablish their country, which they're in the process of doing. So that means that, for example, the central banks that purchased the Iraqi dinar did so for a number of reasons. One reason is, and I've discussed this at numerous times over the years, Iraq, in my opinion, per square mile, is the richest country in the world. And remember, after the Iraqi dinar was sanctioned and worth basically nothing, we were in the midst of global Basel compliance, starting in 1988 and continuing to this day. We were going through 5 phases of Basel. Basel is revaluing currencies globally, not based on the individual central bank's assessment of the value of their currency, but based on a formula based on the known natural resources in each country and the ability to bring those resources to market. So whether it's a central bank or an international hedge fund, a whale investor or individual investors such as ourselves, we purchased the Iraqi dinar when it was virtually worthless, and the country is in the process of rebuilding and reestablishing itself. And so when the dinar revalues, and if it were to revalue today, it will be at a Basel IV compliant rate. So it's a perfect storm. We purchased a worthless currency during a period of time when the world and the globe was shifting to asset-backed currencies, and we have a country that per square mile could be the richest country in the world. The result is, in my opinion, you were able to purchase the Iraqi dinar for next to nothing, and you should be able to go to the bank and exchange it, each dinar, for north of $4. This is where we find ourselves. And again, there are some that say when they eliminate the 3 zeros, it will affect us. Well, there's a couple reasons of why I don't think that's the case. First one I've already mentioned, the fact that we are international investors, and I don't think they're going to be able to pull the rug out from under us and get away with it. And second, if they were going to delete the 3 zeros for those of us that invested internationally, why the effort to collect all of the 3-0 notes? Now, I know a lot of it had to do with the concern of nefarious investors, terrorists, and things like that. But the majority of the money outside of the country, the vast majority of the investment provisional currencies outside of the country, are individuals that purchased the currency precisely because they understood that when the currency revalued, they'd be able to exchange the provisional currency for their own currency at the new rate. Another argument that can be made is, let's say you had $1 million dinar, and let's say you got $3 for it. Well, you went to an American bank, you exchanged the dinar and got U.S. dollars. So that's not an inflationary issue for Iraq. If it's inflationary at all, it's inflationary for the domestic country that exchanged the currency for the new exchange rate, recognizing the 3 zeros. So that's why, in my opinion, if you have $1 million dinar, you're going to be able to, a 3-0 provisional currency, $1 million dinar, you're going to be able to exchange that for 1 million dinar at whatever the given rate is in that nation. So that's where we find ourselves. So just in conclusion, I'm going to take Sudani at his word. If there's one person on the planet that's got the pulse of everything going on, it's got to be Sudani. And he swore on Allah that the citizens of Iraq, and therefore us as well, will see a new exchange rate this year. And again, we're talking 3.5 months, worst case scenario. But we have another issue as an American citizen, and that's we have an election coming up in November. And we have two separate groups involved here. And I will state without hesitation, I am very biased. I have an opinion about which way this country should go. But that opinion is not by default or just pulling it out of the air. I have degrees in political science, macroeconomics, and finance. I've been a contributing member to 2 presidential commissions, the 1986 Commission on Taxes and, believe it or not, the 1993 Commission on Healthcare. I was not a popular person in 1993, I can assure you of that. I've worked in D.C. for over a decade before I decided that I didn't like what was going on there, but I know the Potomac two-step. I know how things work there. So when I say to you we're in a very difficult position, it's because this might be the most important election in 100 years, if not decades, because we have one side, when you strip everything away, they're the real constitutionalists, and the other side that's currently having their convention, if you strip everything away and you know what you're talking about, they're Marxists. I'm happy to back that up. That's what we're dealing with right now. All you have to do is tick through both sides, pick their 5 major issues and plug it in to the political definitions, and you've got the constitutionalists versus the Marxists. Now, why is that important? It's important because if the Marxists win, this country will not look like the country that you were born and raised in. I don't think that's going to happen because in order for that to happen, they'd have to win the White House and both houses of Congress. I don't think that's going to be possible. But if it were to happen, we need to protect ourselves. The Constitution is very difficult to circumvent. The progressive movement's been with us for over 100 years. And part of neurolinguistic programming is to use language that the general public understands to mean one thing when they mean something completely different. I'll give you an example. When the progressive movement began, everyone thought, gee, they're progressives. They want to progress. They want to make things better. They want to evolve. But that's not what that meant by progressive. They defined progressive as progressing beyond the colloquial constraints of the Constitution. They didn't like the Constitution. They thought the Bill of Rights, and Barack Obama actually said it, the Bill of Rights is a series of negative rights because it limits government. To which I would respond, well, that's the whole point, moron. We don't want a tyrannical government. We want a free citizenry. And we want the government accountable to the citizens, not the reverse. And this is what we're dealing with. One of the ways you can protect yourself, whether you're denying or not, is establishing a family asset protection trust. It's what wealthy, well-educated people do all the time. And the beauty of it is it's available to everyone. Now, some would say, well, gee, I'm not really wealthy, so I don't need it. Well, I can understand that argument, but there's another way to look at it. The less you have, the more important it is to protect it. So let me just tick off very quickly the benefits of our Family Asset Protection Trust. It will provide privacy and anonymity. That's important. It will allow you to avoid IRS scrutiny. I don't want to go into the details because I'm kind of under a time crunch here, but basically the business activities will occur within the trust, not you personally. So if there are any issues, they'll be dealt with through the trust. So you won't have to deal with personal scrutiny of the IRS. The trust allows for gifting. Now, if you have currencies, you can gift them to individuals, to family and friends through the trust and control the post-RV proceeds. But it also means whether you're denying or not, you can gift the use of things like cars, homes, boats, etc. to family and friends, but still retain the control of them because they're owned by the trust. Trust will also allow you to avoid the cost and delay of probate, which can take years in certain situations where estates are being contested. And the larger your estate is, the greater the likelihood that someone will contest it for some reason. The trust will also allow you to avoid the federal estate tax, which can be as much as 65% of your estate in excess of $12 million. The trust also can provide certain asset protection benefits. If you're a denarian, this protects you from the Uniform Fraudulent Transfer Act. What does that mean? Let's say you have 10 million dinar that you purchased for $10,000. You transfer the currencies to the trust, and let's say they revalue for $1. So now you have 10 million in trust. Can you personally be sued for $10 million? No. Why? Because under the Uniform Fraudulent Transfer Act, you can only be sued for what you own in direct title or the value of property at the time you transferred it out of title to an entity like our trust. So if you transferred the currencies to the trust when they were worth $10,000, it's irrelevant what they're worth post-RV. You can only be sued for $10,000. Post-RV, there's a benefit I like to refer to as limited liability stop loss, which protects you from future bad acts after you've acquired this wealth. This is accomplished through a strategy called segregation of assets. This is why we have subtrusts. So as you purchase items post-RV, you place each physical item in a separate subtrust. So, for example, if you're in a car accident, only the assets within that trust that own that car would be involved in any litigation because the other assets are in separate subtrusts, which under the law are separate legal entities, which means any plaintiff would not have standing to pursue them. So the trust package works very much the way a commercial barge would work, where all of the valuable cargo is stored in a series of small compartments, so that if any compartment is ever breached, the only potential loss would be the cargo in that one compartment. The cargo in the other compartments is secure due to the firewalls, and the barge will never sink. This is how your trust package will work. The trust is initially a package of 10 trusts, consisting of one master trust that will hold pre-RV currencies, or hold currencies pre-RV, hold financial assets like bank accounts and investment accounts post-RV, and has the power to manage all of the other sub-trusts. The 8 additional sub-trusts, well, first there is an optional gift sub-trust, so you can gift currencies to family and friends through that gift sub-trust and have complete control of the post-RV proceeds. And then 8 additional standard sub-trusts to hold homes, cars, boats, etc. This was the simplification of a rather sophisticated trust package that we utilized for our affluent clients in the past, a package that had an initial cost of anywhere from $6,000 to $10,000. But by simplifying that package and mass marketing it to Denarians, we've been able to reduce the cost to $3,000. There's several ways you can pay for that. Pay us up front, we'll discount the price to $2,500, saving you an additional $500. That's not possible. We do have a deferred payment arrangement. You'd make an initial payment of $525, which some would basically offset our out-of-pocket costs just to produce and deliver your trust package to you. The balance of the $3,000 would then be paid in $100 monthly installments. We'll charge no interest. The only proviso is once the Iraqi dinar revalues globally, any unpaid balance would need to be paid within 30 days. So with that approach, anyone that has dinar, other currencies, and wants to get their trust in force and their affairs in order pre-RV should be able to afford to do so. If you contact us, we'll be happy to send you our initial no-obligation package. You can contact us either by email or phone. Our email address is trusts with an S, unlimited LLC @gmail.com. That's trusts with an S, unlimited LLC @gmail.com. And our phone service is 307-274-4122. That's 307-274-4122. Contact us by email or phone. We'll be happy to get our initial no-obligation package out to you. It does contain everything you need if you wish to proceed, but again, you're under no obligation to do so. If you have any questions, you can contact us. We'll be happy to assist you. There will be no consultation fee. And again, if you wish to proceed, everything you need is in the package. And that's all I wanted to discuss for today. I'm sorry I'm not going to well, you know what? Maybe let's see the time. Let's go ahead and open the Q&A if we have a few. So if there are any questions, I'll be happy to do my best for as long as I can. I'm under the gun a little bit. Again, if you'd like to get our initial no-obligation package, you can contact us by email or phone. We'll get it out as quickly as we can. I'm looking, and I see no questions today. So I think we're done for today. Thanks very much for taking the time to listen to the call. And we will be back next Wednesday. Certainly if something of a dramatic nature were to happen between now and then, we'll try to get out an emergency email and schedule an emergency conference call. But failing that, we'll be back next Wednesday, noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific. Thanks so much for listening, everyone, and have a great week.